The snowstorm howled outside like a living thing, lashing against the windows of my secluded mountain chalet. It was the kind of cold that could turn a human to ice in minutes if they were caught unprepared. I had come to this remote place to escape the chaos of the city, hoping for solitude and quiet. I wasn't expecting visitors, especially not her. It started with a shadow at the edge of the forest. I almost didn't see it through the swirling snow. At first, I thought it was an animal, maybe a wolf or a lost hiker. But as the figure stumbled closer, I saw it was a woman, tall, slender, and moving with visible difficulty. When she reached the porch, she collapsed against the doorframe. I flung the door open, a blast of freezing wind sweeping in with her. She was shivering violently, wrapped in tattered clothing that looked more like pieces of metallic fabric than anything practical. But it was her face that stopped me in my tracks. Her skin shimmered faintly, like frost-catching moonlight, and her eyes, large, luminous, and an unnatural shade of violet, were filled with desperation. "Help me," she whispered, her voice trembling as her tears froze on her cheeks. A fragile trust. I pulled her inside, slamming the door against the storm. She collapsed onto the floor, her body trembling uncontrollably. Grabbing a thick blanket, I wrapped it around her and guided her toward the fireplace. As the warmth began to thaw her frozen limbs, she looked up at me with those haunting violet eyes. "You're not human," I said softly, my voice tinged with awe and fear. She nodded, her expression wary. "I didn't mean to intrude. I was hiding in the forest when the storm came." "Hiding? From what?" She hesitated, her eyes darting to the windows as though expecting something to burst through them at any moment. "From your kind." Her words sent a chill down my spine, but I didn't press further. Instead, I offered her a steaming mug of tea. She took it cautiously, her fingers trembling as she sipped. "What's your name?" I asked. She hesitated again before answering. "Kaelara." I introduced myself. "Daniel. You're safe here, Kaelara." Her tears fell freely now, the warmth of the fire and my kindness breaking through her defenses. "Thank you," she whispered, the truth revealed. Over the next few hours, Kaelara opened up, though it was clear she was still guarding many secrets. She explained that she had arrived on Earth several weeks ago with a small group of her people. Their vessel had been damaged during atmospheric entry, forcing them to crash land in the wilderness. "We were just trying to survive," she said, her voice tinged with sadness. "But your people, they found us. We didn't fight, but they attacked anyway. I was the only one who escaped." I listened, a sinking feeling settling in my chest. It wasn't hard to believe. Humanity had a long history of responding to the unknown with fear and violence. Kaelara's body still bore the scars of her ordeal. Her metallic clothing wasn't just fabric. It was some sort of advanced survival suit, now torn and barely functional. Without it, she was vulnerable to Earth's harsh conditions. "You don't have to hide anymore," I said firmly. "You can stay here." Her eyes widened in surprise, and for the first time, I saw something like hope flicker across her face. A bond beyond worlds. The days passed, and the storm continued to rage. Kaelara and I settled into an uneasy routine. She was cautious, almost painfully polite, as though she expected me to turn on her at any moment. But as time went on, her walls began to crumble. She told me about her home world, a lush, crystalline planet that had been destroyed by a cataclysmic event. Her people had scattered across the galaxy in search of refuge, but most had not survived. Earth, she said, had been their last hope. "Do you regret helping me?" she asked one night as we sat by the fire. I shook my head. "No, I regret what my kind did to yours." Her gaze softened. "Not all of your kind. Not you." It was a simple statement, but it carried an immense weight. For the first time, I realized that I didn't see her as an alien anymore. She was just Kaelara, a brave, kind, and deeply vulnerable being who had suffered more than anyone should. The outside world intrudes. The peace we found together didn't last. A week later, the storm cleared, and with it came the threat Kaelara had been running from. I spotted the search team before they reached the chalet. Men in heavy tactical gear, armed to the teeth, combing the forest with drones. "They've found me," Kaelara said, her voice trembling with fear. "You're not going anywhere," I replied, my tone resolute. She shook her head. "If they find me here, they'll kill you too." I can't let that happen, but I wouldn't let her sacrifice herself. Together, we devised a plan. Using parts of her damaged suit and some tools from the chalet, we created a decoy, a signal that would lead the search team away. It wasn't foolproof, but it bought us time. A new beginning. As the search team moved further into the forest, Kaelara and I packed what little we could carry. She led me to a hidden escape pod buried in the snow, a remnant of her people's ship. It was damaged but functional enough to take us far from the area. "You don't have to come with me," she said as we prepared to leave. "You have a life here." I looked at her, at the woman who had turned my lonely, frozen existence into something meaningful. "My life is with you now." Her tears returned, but this time they weren't from sorrow. Together, we boarded the pod, leaving the chalet and my old life behind. Epilogue. Kaelara and I found refuge in another remote part of the world, far from prying eyes. Over time, we built a new life together, a life defined not by fear or survival, but by trust and love. She taught me about her people, her technology, and her dreams. I taught her about Earth, its beauty, and its flaws. And together, we forged something neither of us thought possible, a future filled with warmth, hope, and belonging. In the coldest of storms, Kaelara had come into my life. And in her, I found the kind of connection that could melt even the harshest of winters.